You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, that heaviness sitting in your chest isn't just in your head. It's a measurable, physical reaction happening inside your body right now, triggered before you've even opened your eyes fully. What if the job you hate isn't just draining your day? What if it's quietly rewriting who you actually are, one exhausting shift at a time? Most people treat a job they hate like a temporary inconvenience, something to grit their teeth through until better days arrive. They tell themselves it's fine, that everyone hates work sometimes, that this is simply what adulthood requires from all of us. But research paints a very different picture, one far more serious than most people ever stop to consider. Chronic work-related stress is consistently linked to higher risks of anxiety, depression, and even cardiovascular disease over time. This isn't a job hitting you once a day and then leaving you alone until tomorrow. It's hitting you in small, repeated doses, every 8 hours, 5 days a week, for months, sometimes for years, quietly accumulating damage you can't always see happening in the moment. Hashtag your body notices before your mind admits it. Long before you're willing to say out loud that something is seriously wrong, your body has already started sending signals. Think of your body as an early warning system, one that switches on long before your conscious mind catches up and admits there's a real problem worth addressing. Chronic stress weakens your immune system, making you noticeably more vulnerable to common colds and, over time, to more serious illnesses as well. A job that fills you with dread disrupts your sleep in very specific ways, making it harder to fall asleep, causing frequent waking throughout the night, and often triggering early morning waking hours before your alarm ever goes off. Elevated cortisol levels, the hormone your body releases under sustained stress, make weight management significantly harder and are frequently connected to stress-related overeating, especially late at night when willpower runs lowest. On top of all this, physical symptoms start showing up in very ordinary, easy-to-dismiss ways: frequent headaches, persistent back pain, and muscle tension that never seems to fully release, even on weekends when you're supposedly relaxing. None of these symptoms feel dramatic on any single day. That's exactly what makes them so dangerous. They accumulate slowly, quietly, until one day you realize you can't actually remember the last time your body felt genuinely at ease. Hashtag the psychological toll, anxiety, depression, and a fading sense of self. Multiple studies have found a strong, consistent connection between job dissatisfaction and symptoms of both anxiety and depression. This isn't just feeling annoyed on a Monday morning. This is a genuine shift in how your brain processes stress, threat, and self-worth over an extended period of time. People stuck in jobs they hate often start blaming themselves for the situation, even when they're objectively performing well and meeting every expectation placed on them. This self-blame quietly erodes self-esteem, creating a strange paradox where competent, capable people begin doubting their own value simply because their environment feels wrong. There's also something deeper happening underneath the surface, a constant suppression of your genuine reactions throughout the workday. Smiling when you want to sigh. Nodding along when you want to object. Staying calm when you want to walk out the door. Over time, this creates an unsettling feeling that the version of yourself showing up at work isn't really you at all, just a performance you've learned to give convincingly enough to get through each shift. People who've spent years inside a job they hated often describe this exact same experience, almost word for word, regardless of their industry or background. It changes how you see the world outside of work, and it changes how you react to people who have absolutely nothing to do with your job. You end up living in a constant low-level fight or flight state. Even while sitting quietly at a desk, staring at a screen, doing nothing that looks remotely threatening from the outside. Hashtag when stress leaks into everything else you love. Here's something researchers have specifically studied and confirmed, sometimes called the spillover effect. Job dissatisfaction doesn't stay neatly contained inside office walls or work hours. It directly correlates with dissatisfaction at home, seeping into every corner of a person's life whether they intended to or not. Irritation built up during a frustrating workday frequently spills into arguments with partners, family members, and close friends, even when the actual argument has absolutely nothing to do with work itself. A small disagreement about dishes or plans for the weekend suddenly explodes into something much bigger, fueled entirely by leftover tension that never got a proper outlet earlier in the day. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, people also start withdrawing from friendships and hobbies they used to genuinely enjoy, simply because every ounce of available energy gets consumed by surviving and recovering from the workday itself. The guitar gathers dust. The gym membership goes unused. Phone calls with old friends become shorter and less frequent, not because the relationship stopped maturing, but because there's nothing left in the tank by the time evening finally arrives. Hashtag the behavioral spiral that sneaks up on you. Here's a chain of events that plays out inside a job you hate, and it happens so gradually that most people never notice it forming until they're already deep inside it. Motivation drops first, quietly, almost imperceptibly. That small drop in motivation opens the door to procrastination, small delays that feel harmless at first but start piling up over weeks and months. Procrastination eventually leads to missed deadlines, projects turned in late, tasks left unfinished until the very last possible moment. Missed deadlines damage reputation, slowly chipping away at the professional trust that took years to build in the first place. Along the way, smaller cracks start showing up too. Showing up late to meetings that used to matter. Making careless mistakes on tasks that used to come easily. Snapping at a coworker or a manager with words that feel completely out of character the moment they leave your mouth. None of these moments feel like a turning point on their own. That's exactly the danger hiding inside this spiral. Each small concession to apathy makes the next one slightly easier to justify, until eventually a person looks up and doesn't fully recognize the version of themselves currently showing up to work every single day. Hashtag when the job pushes people away from everyone else. Job dissatisfaction is directly linked to reduced social engagement and withdrawal from community life outside of work hours. This isn't a coincidence or a minor side effect. It's a well-documented pattern that shows up again and again across different studies and different industries. Friends slowly drift away, not because anyone stopped caring, but because conversations increasingly revolve around endless complaints about the same job, the same frustrations, repeated on a loop that eventually exhausts even the most patient listener. Over time, people stuck in this situation often end up gravitating toward a tight circle of others who feel exactly the same way, forming a kind of closed loop that constantly reinforces the belief that there's simply no way out. Call it an echo chamber of unhappiness, a space where everyone validates everyone else's misery, and where the shared belief that nothing can change quietly becomes the loudest voice in the room. Ironically, this circle often feels comforting in the moment, because misery loves company, yet it actively works against the very change that could actually fix the underlying problem. Hashtag the long-term cost to health and quality of life. Here's a heavier fact worth sitting with honestly, without turning it into a scare tactic. Low-quality jobs combined with high stress and low pay are associated with measurably reduced life expectancy and reduced overall quality of life over time. This isn't meant to trigger panic, it's meant to be taken seriously as one honest data point among many when weighing a difficult decision about your future. Some research has gone even further, suggesting that unemployment can sometimes correlate with better mental health outcomes than staying in a genuinely toxic work environment. That's a striking claim, and it doesn't mean quitting is always the right answer for everyone in every situation. It simply means the assumption that any job is automatically better than no job deserves a much closer, more honest look than most people are willing to give it. Hashtag the financial trap that keeps people stuck. A huge number of people stay in jobs they genuinely hate purely out of fear surrounding financial instability, and that fear is completely understandable. Rent doesn't pause. Bills don't wait. The idea of walking away from a steady paycheck feels reckless, even when the job itself is quietly damaging your health and your relationships every single day. One practical first step that comes up again and again in real advice from people who successfully made this transition involves reviewing current spending and identifying non-essential expenses that can be trimmed without dramatically changing your lifestyle. This single step starts building a financial cushion, even a small one, that creates breathing room for eventually exploring other options without the pressure of an immediate, desperate decision. Many people who eventually left a job they hated didn't start with a dramatic resignation letter. They started with a small side project, something built in the evenings and on weekends, that slowly grew month after month until it could eventually replace the income from the job they were finally ready to leave behind. Hashtag the difference between boring and harmful. Here's an important distinction that rarely gets discussed clearly enough, and it matters more than almost anything else in this entire conversation. A job that feels boring, unfulfilling, or simply beneath someone's skill level is genuinely difficult to endure, but it's typically tolerable in the short term while a person builds towards something better. This kind of job drains enthusiasm, but it usually doesn't put someone in immediate danger. A job involving harassment, discrimination, or unsafe working conditions falls into a completely different category. These situations call for immediate action, not a slow, gradual exit strategy built over many months. Recognizing which category your own situation actually falls into changes everything about how urgently you need to respond, and pretending a harmful situation is simply boring can quietly cost someone far more than they realize. This distinction matters because not every job someone dislikes requires quitting immediately, but some absolutely do, and confusing the two categories can lead to either unnecessary panic or dangerous complacency. Hashtag the most dangerous part isn't the job itself. Here's the idea worth carrying away from this entire conversation. The most dangerous part of hating your job isn't actually the job itself, as difficult and draining as it might genuinely be. The real danger lies in how normal the misery gradually starts to feel after enough time passes, until a person eventually forgets there was ever another way to feel at all. The dread stops feeling like a warning sign and starts feeling like simply how Mondays are supposed to feel. The exhaustion stops feeling unusual and starts feeling like a normal part of being an adult with responsibilities. That quiet acceptance, more than any single bad day at the office, is what actually traps people in place for years longer than necessary. Once misery becomes the baseline, it stops sending the alarm signals that would otherwise push someone toward change, and that silence is far more dangerous than the loudest, worst day at work ever could be. Hashtag one question before you go. If you've ever left a job you hated, what was the exact moment you finally knew it was time to go? Was it a single conversation? A specific morning, a health scare, or simply waking up one day and realizing you couldn't keep pretending anymore? Drop it in the comments below, because these stories genuinely help other people recognize their own situation more clearly, sometimes long before they're ready to admit it out loud to themselves.